friends, and Happy New Year! I hope you are enjoying your 2019 so far. I've spent a lot of time making plans, laying down groundwork, and I'm super pumped for the year. But as I always do at the end of a year, is I do a yearly review. And one of the things I do in my yearly review that's pretty fun is I go through all of the books that I've read that year, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I use Goodreads, the app/website, and I just look through them and scroll through them, and I think about what books had the most impact on me throughout the year, which ones I liked the most, and I did this last year, so I thought it'd be fun to share my favorite picks with you this year. So last year, I picked a category for each book, so I chose a favorite from personal development, I chose a favorite from fiction, etc., etc. I'm not going to bother doing that this year, and I do want to say my goal every year is to read 52 books, and that obviously equates to one book a week. I got to 49 in 2018, so close enough that I was happy about it, but I was like a few books shy of my goal. And just now, like just a couple days ago, it's January 4th today, I finished 2 more books. So I was so close, but I'm not gonna get hung up on the small details. I had a baby last year. It was still pretty good. One thing I did this year with reading that I hadn't really done in previous years was read a couple autobiographies. And this is something I really want to do more of in 2019 because I just think they're really fascinating and they're really inspiring, at least the ones I listen to. Now, I only listened to 2. I listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's and I listened to Michelle Obama's. Both were excellent. I did like Michelle Obama's more, maybe just because I connected to it a little bit more as a woman. But it was really cool hearing her take on the experience of being in the White House from humble origins. She's a really great role model and has overcome a lot of adversity in her life and is just like a general positive person. I really enjoyed her autobiography. And Barack seems like a really cool dude too. And I finished that one on December 31st, so that one's still really fresh in my mind. Do you hear that? What is that? It's like the garbage truck outside or something. I read quite a few parenting books this year as well. I read some books about sleep. I read books about like general parenting. And again, this might be because this is the most recent one that I read, but I really enjoyed There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather by Linda Aitken McGurk. It's basically about, well, I live in a northern climate, I live in Canada, and it gets like cold and snowy here. And this book's basically just all about how children thrive with lots of like unstructured outdoor play, and how in countries like Sweden, kids and adults basically revere the outdoors, daycares and everything, spend lots of time outside. And it contrasts that with the United States where, you know, if there's like a little light drizzle, kids are kept inside over recess, and there's a lot of difficulty getting kids to get enough activity and enough outdoor time because everyone's scared that if they let their kids play out in their yard without paying attention to without supervision, they're going to get kidnapped off the street. Just the difference. Now, Canada nicely, I think, fits somewhere in the middle between those two philosophies. I don't feel like here we're as extreme as the United States in terms of like, you're not going to get CPS called on you, I don't think, if you let your kids play in your yard and you aren't like watching them the whole time. Again, I haven't tested that theory, but I feel fairly confident about it. However, it doesn't seem like we're quite as liberal as the Swedish. So there was a lot to learn in that book. I really enjoyed it. As far as personal development goes, hi Instant Pot. As far as personal development books go, probably my favorite pick this year was by Scott Adams, and it was called How to Fail. I always screw this title up. How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Kind of the story of my life. Now, I hesitate to call this a personal development book because it was. Ultimately, I learned a lot from it. I especially found the chapter on life skills that everyone should have to be valuable. It had everything from playing golf, not as relevant if you're a woman, I don't think. Maybe it is. To like learning basic accounting, to learning web design, just things like, just basically all skills that all humans in this day and age would benefit from having. But it was like a nice mix of his stories. Scott Adams is the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, just as like a little background. And as far as like people overcoming adversity, he has like gone through the ringer. He had this whole like crazy speech thing where he couldn't talk, and like really interesting life story, really interesting guy. And it's not an autobiography, but it has autobiographical moments. It's not a self-help book in that it's like, I don't know, do this and get this result, but it's just like little pearls of wisdom mixed in with a little bit of humor, mixed in with a little bit of story. And because of that, I found that I just flew through that book. I listened to it as an audiobook and it was really enjoyable. Ones I won't mention, but I'll give like a little shout out to. I did spend some time reading about the Montessori and the Waldorf methods. I read some of the original texts about that, and those were interesting, but they're not like ones I generally recommend. It was just for my own sake. I wanted to learn about childhood education a little bit more. Another personal development pick, I'm just scrolling through. This one would have had probably the most impact on me in that I used it the most for planning 2019. And it's by Michael Hyatt, and it's called Your Best Year Ever, a 5-step plan for achieving your most important goals. This book was really easy to follow. I basically just used it like a manual for setting up all of my goals and plans for 2019. I found it really simple, concise, easy to understand, and effective. I'm really amped up for 2019, and that's a large part to do with the planning that I achieved through that book. I can't believe I forgot to mention this one, but another autobiographical book that I read that really shocked me and kind of hit me in my core that I recommend to everyone is called In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom. And it's about a woman, Yeonmi Park. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but it's basically what the title said. She escaped North Korea when she was young. She went through China, eventually ended up in South Korea. And the whole story is just about like how crazy it is to live in North Korea, how crazy it is to escape North Korea and like human trafficking and all the problems that occur in China. And then how difficult it is to transition once she achieved freedom, how the infrastructure is there but not overly helpful. So you have to really push yourself. And a lot of people slip through the cracks. So very, very fascinating. I was reading it and I was like, is this 1984 or is this real life? And actually, Yeonmi Park draws parallels to 1984 in the book as well. So it wasn't just me. It's just it's really, really crazy that that's happening in the world right now. I read one series this year. Usually every year I read a series. I think last year it was the Stephen King series. Why is the title of it not coming to me? It's sitting right. The Dark Tower series. And then I think the year before that it was Harry Potter, which I'd already read. And this year I read the Red Queen series. It's a young adult fantasy series. There's 4 really thick books about the red blood people and the silver blood people, and the silver blood people have like magic powers and they're lording over all high and mighty, the common red blood people. Yeah, just it was kind of cool. I don't know if I'd recommend it. I would recommend it to younger people really into the fantasy genre. It was really dramatic. I felt like as a 32-year-old reading it, that a lot of the drama was like, ugh, so drama. This is like so drama. But sometimes it's fun to have a read like that. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's a pretty solid series. I'm going to give a shout out to the weirdest book I read this year. The book that made me go like, what am I reading? Many, many times, and it's called The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. And Murakami is recommended by a lot of people as like, I don't know, if you're into literature, read this. This is like so different and so bizarre. And those things are very true. It broke my brain a little. Murakami doesn't necessarily distinguish between real life and fake life, like kind of your inner mind and the outer reality are all blended together as one. So as you're reading it, it's like things that don't make any sense if they happen in reality. So you're kind of reading it metaphorically in a way, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's too deep. So it's almost like reading a dream, and like it's ephemeral like a dream. It kind of is non-substantial like a dream, but that makes it sound like it's not very good because it doesn't have depth, and I think that's wrong. I think reading that book was about the experience of reading that book. Kind of like dreaming isn't about like, I don't know, having like some deep, profound revelation, but sometimes dreaming is just about having a fun experience dreaming. Does that make any sense? That's how I felt about that book. Totally forgot about this one. This is fun. Now I'm getting into some of the ones I read in the middle of the year. How to Change Your Mind, What the New Science of Psychedelics Teaches Us. Sorry, the title got cut off. Let me try that again. This is a dense book. This is almost 500 pages. Okay, How to Change Your Mind, What the New Science of Psychedelics Teaches Us About Consciousness, Dying, Addiction, Depression, and Transcendence. So this was written by Michael Pollan. And for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's a New York Times columnist, very well respected, fairly famous. So for him to tackle the subject of psychedelics is pretty impactful, because it's not just like some random hippie being like, hey, check out this LSD. It's this really well-respected person who in his 60s is basically just curious about, he's curious. So this book is a mix of facts, lots of like hard science, really interesting information on how LSD has been used to treat alcoholism, depression, and stuff like that, with very good results. And it's also a mix of his own anecdotal experiences and story, which kind of would come from his background as a New York Times columnist. So very, very, very cool. Another one that I recommend to a whole bunch of people, regardless of how you feel about, like, ethically, that doesn't make sense. Regardless of how you feel about psychedelics, I think it's a really, really fascinating subject. I really read a lot of baby books. I'm going through this, there's like 10 of them. I read The Baby Whisperer, read The Happiest Baby on the Block, I read Sweet Sleep. Sweet Sleep made me feel better about bed sharing, so if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend that one. Baby 411, I totally don't remember reading that one, so it must have been like right when Jane was born that I read that one. Oh yes, and the very first book I read last year, which is worth a shout out, it's called God is Disappointed in You. It's basically a humorous take on the Bible where each chapter of the Bible is condensed and simplified. So if you're interested in reading the Bible but don't want to read the Bible, this is a really fun book. I just thought it was a fun little listen. It was kind of humorous, and I think it might be a little confusing if you've never read the Bible, but having a Christian-based background made it a lot easier for me to understand. I also think that it doesn't cross the line into being offensive to people who are Christian. So if you're Christian and you're like, oh, this guy's just like poo-pooing all over the Bible, that's not what it is at all. I think that you have to have a sense of humor to enjoy it. Like hardcore Christians without a sense of humor might not appreciate it. But it also is respectful at the same time. I've been looking through some of the fiction reads, and I didn't read a ton of fiction, like I mentioned the Red Queen series, but one of the fiction reads that I quite liked, and this is another young adult book I believe, is called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I just thought it was a really sweet little book. And the characters were simple, but the writing was lovely. It was just a lovely little piece. And it was amazing how a book that tackled such heavy matters, there's like abuse, like sexual abuse and stuff in this book. And it's a book about teenagers. But it's amazing how it was done in a way that doesn't leave you feeling in despair. Like I finished that book feeling hopeful, feeling a little bit rejuvenated. And it's just such a delicate thing as an author to be able to tackle such heavy subjects and come out on the other side without being preachy, without being really, really depressing, like the world is horrible and we should all feel horrible. So I thought that was a really cool one. And it's also, I've never seen the movie. I know it has, Emma Stone or something in it, right? But can't speak to the movie, but I did like the book. And that's an easy read too. So if you're looking to get into reading books and you want to start fiction and you want to start something that's not going to be like really intense, like I read Great Expectations by Charles Dickens this year, and I won't recommend it because that was really intense. I kind of had to just oh, okay, here we go, I'm doing another chapter. It was an okay book, but like it really required some hunkering down, and this Perks of Being a Wallflower did not require that. I got sick and read Agatha Christie. That was a pretty good one, but like Agatha Christie's cool. She's worth recommending. That one was Death on the Nile. It was pretty good. Oh yeah, and I guess the Wind Up Bird Chronicle would have been like the weird, that was also fiction. So I didn't even make a list. I just kind of scrolled through my thing. So I have no idea how many books I just told you about. But that's my list. Oh, and I read Where'd You Go Bernadette. That was a pretty good one too. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like, whoa, best book ever. But it was like it was a really interesting book. Where'd You Go Bernadette is basically about this woman who has social anxiety, her daughter, her husband, they live in Seattle. There's like a trip to Antarctica and like disappearing people, mystery, and like social drama, which makes it sound less interesting than it was. I just found that they used emails and letters and things like that interspersed with the narration, and it was just a really fun, fast-paced read. And I think that was a really popular one a few years ago, so I was a little late on that train. But anyway, those were my favorite books of the year. As always, it's really fun. Oh, I can't believe I have one more. This was actually my favorite fiction. I forgot. I was skipping my 5-star ones. Okay, this one was called All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And this one is based in the time period of World War II in Europe. However, it's not about World War II so much as it has a couple children who are the main characters in World War II. And the war is just kind of like the backdrop, but it's about the characters. It's about a blind girl and a German boy who's really quick with like electronics and stuff like that. And it's just their stories and how they intersect. And it's just about people. So if you like books that are about humans and humans being awesome and also crappy, I don't know. It's just, again, it had some really sad moments, some really dark moments, but overall, it just felt profound, made me cry. It was just a good drama, a good like dense, thick. I think it was 531 pages, so it wasn't a short read, but I was one of the most rewarding reads of the year, not year of the reads. I can speak. And now I have done my list. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite books of the year are. And you can join me on Goodreads. You can just look up my name, Allysia Kearney, on Goodreads. That's my maiden name. And yeah, add me. I like making friends. I have a lot of you YouTube people as friends on Goodreads, and we can all read books together next year. So here's to another 52, or however many you're going to read, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.